Next thing is that we got some like arbitrary data entry stuff in. So if we wanted to like, I don't know, translate these to German or something, oops, um, then we could just like drop in some arbitrary text, which allows us to maybe visualize it. So now I can have my, up here, or if we wanted to do data labels or something, we could, let's see, I think you can label by another field here. Uh, so we could take the calculation and position those above. And then we might have, now we have these data labels in here, or, it's good for putting stuff in the tooltip, all kinds of things. So these also work with pivots. So if I have, let me remove this one because it's not going to be that useful in pivot. Um, if I have a pivot like this, I can add a new column, and then on a per pivot basis, just kind of like put in information wherever I want here. Um, so anyway, interesting for data tagging, things like that. So works maybe not exactly the way that your Excel sheet does, because these are not, they're tied to the dimensions and the pivots. So they will, they're not particularly reusable in that respect, but they're still pretty interesting. And I think there's a lot of cool use cases there.
Yeah, and if I can do a follow on with that, I'll
Yeah.
show you another cool sort of extension, which
Quick
is,
question for Richard before while you're pulling this up.
yeah,
I assume the trigger, or I should say like lack of trigger, is just no equal sign gets handled as that.
Exactly, which is what Excel does
Yeah.
basically.
Do we have any thoughts about, and I'm sure this is on the radar, like treating date like strings as dates like Excel does and things like that?
Yeah, I mean, dates are still something that we haven't really tackled. We hope to figure out how to handle them for like date math and things like that. But
And
in
I
fact,
assume if
that
like you mix integers and strings, it'll do what it's doing with other calcs, where it'll just sort of find the most the sort of least common denominator among all the types.
I think so. For the most part, pretty much everything that you drop in there is treated as a string today, though.
Got it.
So it would be if you used that calculation, then like in another column, and you were trying to do some math or something with it, then we would probably cast it to the proper thing.
Got it.
I did this before and it worked. Here, wait, I'll save queries with you just to make sure. Test. I think something funky is happening on the read query. Oops. SQL test calc one. So it should say, it's not saying paid or unpaid. Bucket. I'm gonna move this to the third column. So I've classified my sources, and then I should actually just be able to query at that. Okay, so we've got calc one. And then we can go a sum. And so now it's taking my classifier from my original query, and it's actually re-aggregating them. So I can kind of essentially do on the fly bucketing in the BI layer, which is, I mean, this is wild actually, because I'm just able to tag these by hand.
Does the calc become a field?
It did because I saved it as a view here. But here's what's actually kind of interesting is you can see what we're doing here is we're actually just writing a big case statement. So we're pinning this to all of the dimensions that exist. So you can see that search got organic, email got organic. So this is actually promotable. And this would be the same as writing a giant case statement that's case when this, then that, when this, then that, when this, and then that. And then all I'm doing is a regroup on it. So we could make that a promotable field if we want, but it's like really nice in this little lightweight workbook UI.
This could also be really cool for like annotations and things, right? Like if you're calling out something and you want to put a note there, I mean, we don't have like necessarily the visual. I mean, you probably hack something.
They could be
on
labels,
the
right?
viz,
Like,
though. Yeah, it could be labeled.
like
could be an
what
individual
Richard
tip.
showed. Yeah.
Yep. Like, hey, there was like if you hover over some date and you're like, this was Christmas Day or whatever it was, you can like basically do arbitrary annotation.
You can shove it into tooltips like
Cool.
that.
That's really cool.
So why not just make it a regular case statement?
It's just 10 times faster to do that. Like you would have had to write a case statement if you did that before. Oh, you mean like why do we functionalize it, Funky?
I think, like, when I think of calculations, I assume that they're only operating on the data set that was returned. And what you just demonstrated suggests that you can promote the calculation and turn it into something that can be, like you said, put in the BI layer. And
Yep.
so what I'm wondering is, like, in the save query as view view, does that no longer become a calculation? Is it now just like a field with a case statement, or how's that working?
It essentially is a field with the case statement because we're just saving that whole SQL block. And so that whole, it's actually kind of both at the same time in that it is tied to the query. And in that query, it's a case statement, but it's locked to the query. So it's not generalized outside of the query context, but it could be.
Okay, so for calculations, they use the equal sign where you say like sum of some column.
Yep.
If you promote them, do they only stay the sum of the results set column that's returned, or do they become like
So they
regular
become
fields?
generalized. And I think this is why we don't have the promotion on it yet, is that we need to separate between the fields that are easy to promote. So concat column 1, column 2 would be, it's always going to make sense. Sum of table is not always going to make sense. And so we probably want different promotion workflows for those two types of fields.
That's exactly where I was driving with this.
Yeah, we literally have a thread about it on GitHub right now that's like, let's make the first one really easy to promote and let's think about what we want to do with the second one.
Sorry, I just have a quick follow-up question. I'm not sure if this went over my head, but did we just kind of release annotations? Or
Other
like,
than the inability to put them on a chart elegantly, yes.
But this is going to be the backing. This is how we'll do it. We'll do the annotations. We
Yeah.
want to get to,
And people are implicitly saying this, but this is such a weird concept in BI, like what we've opened up right here. It's so weird and powerful. I would encourage everyone here to think about how they could use these and where they could use these, because we almost want to, now that we've opened up something this powerful, we want to think about places we can go inject these things. And like, there's obvious ones, like I want to annotate a line on a chart, or I want to annotate a tooltip on a point, or I want to regroup it into a pie chart like you saw. I think there's probably other creative stuff that we could do that's like add a note on a row that is only available on hover or something. We should think about all the crazy stuff that you could do if you could just drop text onto a line and then put it on a dashboard or a table or a chart. But
when you do save query as view, what is dim count in that situation in the field picker?
That was the metric that was in the table. So here, I'll just pull it back up one more time.
Yeah, the names are definitely not ideal. We should be pulling through the labels for sure.
So this is user count, and over here, dim count is just user count. It's poorly named.
It's
and
just,
Nate,
okay.
to hammer home your thing.
Calc 1 is what shows up in the SQL, right? As the okay.
And it should be bucket. But Nate, what's crazy here is because this is a case statement that's tied to traffic source. If I now add gender, the case statement still works. It just duplicates per row, which is so crazy and interesting, actually.
We'll want to have like an other bucket too. So if like a new traffic source comes in, you can sort of have it all come in.
I think that's actually what would happen. It would just come in blank because
it would come in as null.
It's because else null it's in here. Like it's writing a valid case statement. So like the crazy thing is like it's actually somewhat scalable. Like it's very, very elegant. It's just a little bit wacky. And I don't think that we're going to want to push all these down, but I think there's lots of places where you might want to actually.
Well, it's scalable for the user. We almost didn't put this in due to worries about scalable in terms of the code side, but that's you know.
That's
don't
that's
figure
not my
something-
problem, Steven.
Yeah, exactly.
You're talking about the execution time.
Not so much the execution time, but the fact that like it's saved literally like that as a big case statement, this big serialized case statement, and every little edit you make makes a new query with a new copy of the calc. And so like we may need to someday figure out, we'll see, maybe it won't be a problem, maybe just like that.
But you're worried about somebody who goes and annotates 1,000 rows.
Yeah, and if many people go and annotate 1,000 rows, like the size of the stored queries could get large, but we decided it just wasn't worth worrying about yet until we actually see that.
Yeah, I feel like we're probably okay until we offer like the, you know, drag down behavior where you could legitimately, you know, do this for 10,000 rows without thinking about it.
Yeah, maybe it's
or
just
allowing
like,
people to paste stuff in.
yeah,
Yeah.
maybe it's just like never figure that out before we offer drag down or paste, and because
I
otherwise
feel like this is a challenge, and I just need to go do it now.
I mean, I saw
Good
people build merge queries with 30 queries on it at Looker. So, you know, people are willing to do some crazy stuff.
Colin, to your point on your last demo where the values filled in, I actually played around with that a bit yesterday, and I have some thoughts, but I'll keep them off the demo recording.